Hello and welcome to the Sky Blue Times YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking at the match against Juventus, the performance, look at in more detail the setup that we saw in comparison to the other games that we've seen from Manchester City in the tournament, the players used, the rotations that we saw, the new signings, digging into all of the details around that. Now, one thing I would have to stress at the start, and along with a couple other things, is a lot of what we're seeing in that match against Juventus we would have seen in different iterations of Pep Guardiola's teams across Manchester City, and we would have seen it across different teams that Guardiola has coached, with it being Bayern Munich and Barcelona. You think about the fullbacks tucking inside next to the defensive midfielder, really narrow, coming into midfield like Aiton Nori and Mateus Nunes did do. We've seen that at Bayern Munich with the likes of Alaba and Philipp Lahm. You look about the rotations that we saw out wide between the fullback and the wingers. We see all those sort of rotations when we're looking at the Barcelona team of old, coached by Pep Guardiola. You look at the speed that Manchester City moved the ball in this match, particularly in the first half. Very reminiscent of what we saw from the 17-18, 18-19 Manchester City teams. So I wouldn't get too drawn into thinking this is brand new, this is a new meta that's revolutionising football and all the kind of expletives that roll off the tongue from that. There's a lot of things here that are just already been done, whether it's by Guardiola or by other teams. He will tell you himself that it's not about creating everything brand new all the time. He's very much somebody that makes the best out of old ideas and recycles them and tries out things that are new to the team but are still existing methods, existing tactics, principles that you would have seen, and just the way football does evolve. You think about how teams have changed with their pressing, their man marking, the way they build out from the back now. All these things just change what tools you're going to be using in your team. So as much as Guardiola will have his principles, he will still be quite both pragmatic and flexible within that to adjust and take on what he needs to, depending on how the game of football does change over time. I would say though, the role of Jeremy Doku, that is something to keep an eye on, and we'll look at hopefully in future games to see how that works out. So you would have noticed that he had quite a free role, along with all the rotations we'll touch on a little bit later. You did see him pop up in the middle, looking to come across to the pockets. You saw him link up with Savinho as well on the right hand side. So that is something that's a little bit different. Obviously it changes how Manchester City can counter-press. It changes the rest defence structure. But yeah, all things that we'll get into. And last thing before we go into more detail on a few things is to really be conscious of what you're suggesting is being used by certain new coaches coming in. So I mentioned all these different new ideas. Pep Linders is coming in to go, right, I've rediscovered football and bring all these brand ideas that Guardiola never knew existed and was never going to use. It's a lot about when you're bringing in this refreshed coaching team, it's about having people that are just willing to disagree, suggest new ideas and change that discussion, bring their new perspectives, and that brings a healthy environment for the discussion around whether it's the team, use of individual players. And we've all seen recently the quotes about the dynamic on the pitch, on the training ground from last season, coaches that weren't necessarily involved directly with players, giving advice and taking much more of a backseat role. That is one of the things that we've seen from all the training clips, all the Inside City videos, that the new refreshed group is a lot more interactive with these players. You can see the attitude, see the vibe, and then again, that is something that is really, really important, but maybe not the most pronounced thing when you're thinking about hiring a new coach. You're thinking about what tactics is he going to bring in, when actually just the impact within a training session is a huge one for the team. So yeah, that is all the things that I would say there. And then now if we shift across to the setup here, everything, a lot of the game, obviously people point out the mistake that Ederson did make for the Juventus first goal, playing out from the back, making this pass right here when Bernardo dropped, and it was way too far out for Bernardo to be able to get that. Easy goal for Juventus to score. But everything else in this game, when it comes to the build-up, revolved around what Ederson was going to do on the ball, his decision making, his composure. That was really key in this game. So as you can see here, both fullbacks provide the width in the build-up phase. You've got the three pivots in Reinders, Rodri and Bernardo. Kanji and Diaz split. Ederson steps up on the ball. if those three pivots here drop, they will draw their markers with them. They will create this space in the middle here. That means Jeremy Doku and Savinho can move inside. That will then bring Juventus players with them, and then that will leave this space here, and also comes up on the other side, the space either side for Omar Marmoush to attack and get in behind. So you've already then created a build-up pattern that will suit Omar Marmoush's strengths to be able to run in behind and attack that space. And then you also give Juventus a lot of decisions to make. So if we are playing these balls in behind to Omar Marmoush and they're becoming a real problem, then they're not going to want to follow the likes of Jeremy Doku and Savinho inside. So if they do that and they leave them, you've got these two players here that are free for Ederson to pick out the passes directly into them. Doku would use more of his strength in the central spaces, whereas Savinho is very much like an agile player, uses touch into space and off he goes. Both players adept coming inside and showed throughout the first half that they can do this, and then into the second half as well. But then if you're going to keep an eye on Jeremy Doku and Savinho and Omar Marmoush, and then you're going to drop back your players that were on top of Rodri, Reinders and Bernardo, well then you're going to give a spare man that Ederson just needs to find, and then Man City are then able to play out from the back. So they're all the different ways that you can build up through this game against Juventus. Give them a lot of decisions. Juventus wanted to be aggressive, wanted to be man-to-man. So you saw that from the very beginning. Obviously, there was little moments of pressure where they did have some success. But in this heat, you just can't sustain that and be as efficient with that. And you saw then they had a lot of decisions to make of how aggressive they were going to be, and that would play into Man City's hands. And we did see that carry on to the rest of the game. So this is that build-up pattern in action here. So you can just see Ederson on the ball a lot more deeper. Rodri's come down, Reinders come down, Bernardo's come down, Jeremy Doku now, acres of space, Savinho as well, acres of space. And then you'll see Omar Marmoush over here preparing to make his run into the space there. So he's got all the time, all the space to run into, and Ederson can see that really quickly, really clearly, and is able to pick out those runs. And then obviously you look either side, you've got the two fullbacks here that stretch him, pulling these two Juventus players with them. So yeah, City really do stretch the pitch, give themselves a lot of options here. It wasn't just we progressed through one way, there was multiple ways, multiple players that could do this. It wasn't a case of we got Rodri on the pitch, he'll be able to build up for us. He'll find the solutions. There was many across the pitch that Ederson could pick from. And that kind of outlet that we were talking about with Omar Marmoush, and this is a kind of main thing to mention with this system that we did see against Juventus, is that this suited Erling Haaland and it suited Omar Marmoush. 1-for-1, both fit in really nicely. We've seen last season that some of the setups fit more to Omar Marmoush. Then you look at when Erling Haaland was coming back, you think about the injury towards the end of the season. He comes back and then suddenly it doesn't quite fit in the right way. That is what we're talking about here, having a system that fits both. You bring one on and it is a seamless transition, and that's exactly what happened with Haaland. And we saw this for the fourth goal. So you think here, Ederson in the middle, both centre-backs split, full-backs out here provided width, Nunes with his arms open there, Reinders, Rodri and this is Foden in place as he came on. And then yeah, you've got Erling Haaland trying to make this run in behind that Ederson does pick out. And then on top of that, you're then looking at Jeremy Doku then making this run to support him. Phil Foden's not far behind him, making a run into the middle. Savinho actually over on this side. Phil Foden coming through the middle. So you've already got players in and around Haaland right away as he's running with the ball. He's not completely outnumbered. He has support. So even if he's making an incredible touch like he is down here, you've still got Phil Foden making that run. He's able to immediately lay that ball off if he does want to. And these are all the long passes, as you can see. A lot of them originate from where Ederson was standing, whether it was on the edge of the box, coming out a little bit further. You saw a lot of City playing vertical, in particular down to this would be the right hand side for Manchester City. On Juventus's left, that's a zone that they were really targeting. And if you look back over the last couple of seasons, you've seen City play long into that spot. We've done it a few times from kickoffs, play it back to Ederson immediately if they do have the ball first, and then hit it into Haaland long into that spot. But making the best use out of that space when you are using Ederson to Haaland, it's been mixed across the last couple of seasons. So yeah, it's been really good to see this. in particular being used to great effect. And they could also build through the press. Wasn't just a case of always hitting long. This goal here in particular, this is the one where Nunes goes through and assists Haaland for the third goal. Diaz pass out to Savinho. A Juventus player then coming in towards him. Nunes spots this, making a run across, bringing a player with him. He's going to curve his run all the way up here. And you've got Reinders behind spotting this, and he's going to follow. And that's something I mentioned when Reinders did sign. He just has this kind of innate ability to know where he needs to be, and we've seen that in the first couple of games he's played for the team. He's just fitted in right away because he knows where he needs to be. He has that awareness, has that intuition, and it's helped him tremendously, and will certainly put him in a good place for his first season at the club. So yeah, Diaz pass out to Savinho, Nunes moving across. Nunes continues this run, bringing a player with him. Obviously, Reinders then coming into the space that Nunes has vacated. You've got Aït-Nouri sat here as the DM, as he's tucked in, recognised the space he needs to be. You've got Rodri that dropped further back here when they were on the ball. So yeah, you're already starting to see players switch on to where they need to be so quickly into their career is very, very impressive from me. Savinho, as you see here, takes a touch, coming inside, ready with Reinders coming there, lays off the ball to him. Reinders able to turn, stretch his legs and carry the ball further up the pitch. Nunes continues his run, Haaland then making that run, and we see the other strength of Reinders when he is carrying the ball, on top of his other quality, which is he really does nail these passes in the final third, doesn't waste his time, waits them really, really nicely. So this ball then goes through to Matheus Nunes, Haaland making that run through the middle, Bernardo then coming up to support. You've got Jeremy Doku still on the other side coming across as well. So you're looking at these transition moments that last season you'd play long to Haaland, and it's more about what he can do in those situations rather than who are the people in and around Erling Haaland. So yeah, really encouraging sign. We'll get onto with the rotations, and that's another thing, supporting players out wide. But when we're in these moments where you're making those quick transition moves, Erling Haaland being better supported is incredible to see, and really is necessary. So yeah, coming to the rotations, I've got the players laid out here. So the first thing is, this is the 3-2 rest defence, 2-3 sorry, rest defence here. Kanji, Diaz, Rodri, Reinders, and Matheus Nunes, and you'd often have Aït-Nouri tuck in there. You'd have Bernardo drop in there, and they're always looking to maintain that 2-3 as that rest defence. Rodri very much in the centre for most of the time, and then on either side, whether it's Reinders, whether it's Nunes, Bernardo, Aït-Nouri, that's where you saw a lot of fluidity. So that person was always changing, but as you saw across the match, they were well aware of there being that person in that spot. So when one person makes that move and initiates it, the other person is aware and knows where they need to be. We did also see Omar Marmoush move out to the left-hand side quite a bit as well, and you saw those kind of rotations that were really nice to see. But primarily it's that relationship with Aït-Nouri and Jeremy Doku. So Doku could come outside and provide the width. Aït-Nouri could be inside. Reinders will be more between the lines, looking to get into the box. And then you saw Jeremy Doku move inside. Aït-Nouri knows he needs to provide the width, and moves out to that spot. And then you even saw when the team was more over to the right hand side, and Jeremy Doku, as I mentioned at the start of this video, had a bit more freedom in the final third. So you would see at times Doku move over and link up with Savinho on this right side. Aït-Nouri would be switched on and tuck in here, so he would sacrifice that width and make sure he was in the right spot, tucked into the middle. So yeah, you just saw a player immediately that was very switched on to these rotations so quickly, and it reminded me of when PSG were making their way to the Champions League final. Vitinha had an interview talking about Luis Enrique, the rotations that they've had in the second season compared to the first season, and how they were more rigid in that first season as they were kind of like learning their roles. But then he's given them that freedom once they are aware of the rotations in the second season, and you've really seen them flourish. And then to go see what was the third match of Manchester City in the Club World Cup, what's probably for this 11, it's the first game they play together. To see these rotations go so well in that first game really was impressive to me, and that would be my biggest standout, is how quickly these players are learning their responsibilities, learning the spaces that they need to vacate and move into. Very, very impressive. And then, yeah, over on the right hand side, as we mentioned, rotations. Mateus Nunes holding the width or tucking inside next to Rodri. Bernardo Silva knowing when he can be between the lines, when he can drop back into the position where Nunes is, allowing Savinho to then move inside as well as stay outside. So yeah, very, very fluid. And then the other thing you did see is Rodri would also then pull out wide when need be. So if Rodri wanted to be where Nunes was and moving across, then the fullback would move inside, Bernardo could drop into the middle, Reinders would come across, Aït-Nouri would go into the position where Tijani Reinders is, and then Rodri can fill this position here to be able to overload and sit at the back. And so yeah, really good to see those kind of like things tried out. And what you'll notice on either side is they were always trying to have three players like behind the ball, so to speak. So if Savinho is over on this side, you always wanted to have Diaz here. You always wanted to have a guy here, to have Rodri here, and they would shift across over to this side. So you'd have Rodri here, Nunes here, and then Diaz back here. You'd always have those three players behind the ball to support that. If we did have a transition, they could counter press very, very well. So yeah, just really, really good to see. Really pleasant surprise to tune into the Juventus game and see a performance like that and see be so fluid and intelligent with their movement. So yeah, he's just another look of what that setup can look like at different points. You've got Ryan Aït-Nouri over here providing the width. Tijani Reinders here. Rodri drops a few times throughout the match to drop between the centre backs. Really comfortable doing that. Diaz, Kanji either side. And then yeah, you can see the likes of Bernardo, Savinho, Nunes out wide, Jeremy Doku, as I mentioned, coming into the middle at points, finding pockets of space. Omar Mamouche over here. So if you're Juventus who's trying to be aggressive with your man-to-man, really, really struggling with the press. And then when you're sat back here, they were often having 5 players in the back line, quite passive. So for Manchester City, it was so easy to have those kind of like fluid rotations, and that is something you should bear in mind when we're looking ahead to other games. Is to an extent, Juventus did play into City's hands to make them look even better. As good as City were, it's just a factor that we have to be honest about. And then yeah, you think about the opening goal for Jeremy Doku, lovely movement in behind, great to see that. Aït-Nouri tucked inside, Rodri in the middle, playing that pass right through there. Incredible action to see, and something that probably wouldn't have seen last season, particularly the movement. I think Guardiola can play that pass, but the way we were set up with the kind of like 3-1-6 at times, and then when Guardiola was more of a kind of flying fullback with Mateus Nunes in other games, just wasn't in a position to be able to play those sort of passes. So yeah, really, really good to see that. This is the own goal that Juventus scored. Obviously not here for the finish, but the main point here to highlight is this run from deep from Mateus Nunes. So Rodri, as I mentioned earlier in the video, pulls out wide at times. Ryan Aït-Nouri moves across to play as the 6 in the middle. Ryan is pushing up here between the lines. Savinho out wide, and Nunes notices the space that he can attack that Juventus isn't going to follow. And that's why he gets his rewards for that. And then here's just another couple pictures just to show you. So you think about City building up. You've got Ryan Aït-Nouri inside, Jeremy Doku on the outside. But not that long before it, you've got Ryan Aït-Nouri out here, out wide, Jeremy Doku who came across through to the middle when Manchester City were building up and playing through the press at the time. So you've got a team that really are fluid, that are picking up lots of different positions across the match. And yeah, it's really good to see, as I mentioned, just how smart they were with when to take the risk, where I need to be, awareness of all the spaces throughout the game from a number of players. And then yeah, this just brings me to the passing map. This is the passing map from the first half. As you can see here, Rodri very much at the base. Tijani Reinders up here, Bernardo Silva who pull out wide quite often to support progressing the ball on that right hand side. As I mentioned, Ryan is pushing up, Omar Mamouche in the middle, Savinho and Doku tucked more inside. As you can see, their kind of positions along the edge of the box tells you a lot about where they were, which was coming inside quite a lot when we did get into the final third, and then rotating. So you've got the fullbacks kind of at the widest point, but still quite a narrow one, because there wasn't one player, one position that was permanently holding the width through all phases of the game. So in the build-up phase, you're looking at the fullbacks, but then in the final third, the wingers come into play and they make those kind of nice fluid rotations with the fullback. So you couldn't really nail it on one person or the other. And then yeah, look at that, more than 3 times the number of passes completed in the first half. Tells you a lot of the story, along with the pass accuracy from Juventus in that game. So yeah, brings me to the end of the video. Very impressive to see those rotations. Remember everything I said at the start of the video about how much you kind of attribute to the opposition, to your coaches, to how things can just change across the season. You think back to last season with before Rodri got the injury, it was very clear Guardiola wanted to use a 3-1-6 formation. He tries that after Rodri gets his injury and then quickly changes. So that plan initially at the start of the season quickly goes away and changes to something else. You go back to the treble season. You think about Cancelo and other players that fell out, that had issues off the pitch. That would have been part of the grand plan in the summer to win the treble. But through circumstance, Guardiola adjusts. He sees the use of Rico Lewis inverted. He thinks about the qualities John Stones could provide in those positions instead. And then, yeah, you start to see how that formation changes. So a lot of things will change within the season. But particularly this Juventus performance, to see the rotations, to see how intelligent the players were with their movements, with how switched on they were defensively, very encouraging signs. So yeah, really like the performance. Look forward to the next round against Al Hilal. Please let me know down below what you thought of the match, your kind of opinions compared to what I've been saying in this video. If there's anything else you want me to cover in the meantime, then again, let me know down below. Otherwise, we'll be back with another video after the round of 16 game, looking at what happened against Al Hilal. Hopefully a win for Manchester City as they move on to the next stage of the competition, but we will see very difficult opposition based on some of the performances I've seen, how quickly Inzaghi has seemed to coach the team into a better way. You look at Cancelo getting to play his first match against City. Although they should be expected to win City, it won't be an easy one by any stretch. But this was a very encouraging performance going into it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and we'll be back very, very soon.